I was heavily against making notes from the beginning of
Okay.
IB. I don't like it because I think it's a waste of time personally. So I
Okay.
focus on actively recalling material. I focus on past paper. By actively learning, I mean actually doing questions, putting effort in your work so that you can retain the knowledge better. Because the more effort you put in your learning, the stronger your neurons and your connections will form. And the faster you'll learn and the more effective that learning will be. Because a lot of my friends, literally, they just sat in libraries after school and copied the textbook, or like mostly copied it as their, and that was their note taking, and it took them hours to get through it. And I was looking at them like, why are you doing this? What use is this? So I had these entrance exams ready by the time in that summer. I did my UK CAT in the summer, August. I did the BMAT right before the application was submitted, and I wrote my personal statement in that like last month before I had to complete the application. Before you start, take 30 minutes out to go through the syllabus. Like actually read the content, the lines in the syllabus, and have an example past paper with you from day one to see what you're actually having to study for. Okay. Don't waste time studying the useless crap in your textbooks. Look at what you have to learn and only focus on those specific syllabus lines.
Hello guys, welcome to IB 360. So this is a special interview with Zain Asif. Zain has scored a pretty impressive 39 on 45 in IB. He is going to start medical school in the University of Manchester this fall. He makes super impressive videos on YouTube. He makes videos on active recall, deep learning, and how to achieve those particularly high productive states. So you can definitely check out his videos on YouTube. We will be linking these videos in the I button over here. So watch the complete interview to get a glimpse of how to score this kind of marks. 39 or 45 is definitely impressive, and he will be sharing a lot of tips on and tricks that he personally used to get this kind of marks. So stay tuned, and this is your host Ritvik from IB 360. So Zain, first of all, tell me something about yourself. I know that's a very stereotypical question, but let's just begin with that.
Yeah, I'm Zain. I study at the University of Manchester. I start medicine there this fall, finally. I actually didn't get into medicine the first time, and I reapplied last year and got in this year. So I'm really excited, and I'm on holiday right now in Lahore, Pakistan, in my family home. So it's really nice.
Okay. So Zain, as you are someone who just completed their IB, how was the IB experience for you?
That's a really difficult question because it was up and it was also down. You know what I mean? It was both really amazing at some parts, but it was also highly just very difficult to manage everything at other parts. And especially, I think I switched schools in between IB as well. So I had to switch subjects around. I had to completely change the way I was dealing with things and have new teachers, and it was a mess initially. Okay. You get used to it and you get in the flow, and I think it's very manageable at some point.
Okay, so Zain, what subjects did you have?
At the end, they ended up being chemistry HL, biology HL, literature HL, physics SL, math SL, and French.
Okay. Yeah. So you had a pretty interesting combination of subjects. Which subject, according to you, you had to put more time and effort to master that subject?
Everything else came a lot more naturally, but chemistry, just I had to put that extra bit of activation energy to actually get.
So Zain, tell me about the resources that you used to get such a good score. Did you focus on the past year questions, or did you focus on the concepts more?
I think it really depended on the subject.
Yeah.
But I think my time was more heavily weighted towards past year questions, because I really thought that the act of doing would teach me a lot faster than just the act of reading.
So you mentioned that you solved past year questions, then you went back to the concepts and focused on that concepts and improved the concepts. That's a very unique approach on mastering a subject. Can you just elaborate on that?
My focus was to get to a past paper question as soon as I learned something, solve it, massively screw up, and then go back to the concepts, learn them, and then come back to
Okay.
the past.
Okay. So you are like learning from the questions itself.
Yeah, that I
Yeah.
found like.
So okay. So you're picking up a question. If you are not able to solve it, you are going back to the concepts, learning the concept, and then picking up the question again. So Zain, did you make notes as you progressed?
I I was heavily against making notes from the beginning of
Okay.
IB because they
Okay.
were
So you
I
don't like making notes.
I don't like it because I think it's a waste of time personally. So I
Okay.
focus on actively recalling material. I focus on past papers. I focused on just building my concepts through learning actively and talking to people and those sort of methods.
So Zain, what do you mean by active recall? So can you just elaborate for our viewers?
Yeah, no worries. So how the way we retain the most effectively is by engaging our brain when we're studying. By passively reading your textbook or highlighting or watching a YouTube video, you aren't engaging with the material, you aren't engaging with any of it. By actively learning, I mean actually doing questions, putting effort in your work so that you can retain the knowledge better. Because the more effort you put in your learning, the stronger your neurons and your connections will form. And the faster you'll learn and the more effective that learning will be. And that I found this out from like one of the books I read called Make It Stick. And you should read it as well, or any student should, because it really just changes the way that you study. And I think in this day and age, no one really teaches us how to study. Do you know?
So Zain, you follow Ali Abdal as well. So Ali is a very active note taker as well. He often takes his notes in his iPad, scribbles down his notes in his iPad, and in fact, in our generation, like it has become a ritual to you have to have an iPad, you have to scribble down notes, or the concept of note taking is so much mainstream now. What are your takes on that?
I don't think making notes is the way forward. I think
Okay.
if you making notes to study them later isn't the way forward. I would suggest making notes if you're learning something very difficult and you want to like break it down on a paper, maybe draw something. But I wouldn't look at that paper again if that makes sense. Because a lot
Okay.
of my friends
Yeah.
literally they just sat in libraries after school and copied the textbook or like mostly copied it as their and that was their note taking and it took them hours to
Yes.
get through it and I was looking at them like why are you doing this, why what use is this? But no,
Okay.
Ali
So
Abdal, I think a lot
yeah.
of his methods
Yeah.
really inspired me. That watching his YouTube videos and actually learning about active recall through him, reading the book that I mentioned earlier because of him, then started expanding my own knowledge on studying methods really just changed the game for me.
Okay. Yeah. So Zain, if you didn't make notes, how did you remember the stuff that you studied? Suppose something that you studied 7 days earlier or 14 days earlier or suppose a month earlier. How did you remember those stuff?
Thing is, I think most of the times I didn't remember. So when I would just use the same resources and the same questions to go over that. For biology, for example,
Okay, so you are going
yeah,
through the questions and by the questions you are getting the concepts and learning as well, right?
questions give me the structure or like the
Okay.
direction that I follow.
Okay.
And then I
Okay.
have those specific guides or YouTube channels that I just go to learn that concept. For chemistry though, I found it hard to make like just rely on questions. So for that specific subject, I made maps on like one page. So I made these one page mind maps where I noted down everything that I knew about that topic on that one page. But yeah, that was just one thing that I did for that specific subject. Yeah.
Okay, it's pretty insightful. So Zain, as you have finished your IB curriculum, will you suggest IB to someone?
I was thinking about this because we had when told me that you might bring this up. I was thinking about this. Would I actually suggest doing IB to someone? And initially I was like, oh God, would I really? It's that. But then I realized that I would because the skills it gives you, the whole roundedness it gives you really builds your character and teaches you to deal with a lot of different things at the same time. It gives you so many real life skills that I don't think things like A levels and other curriculums really do. So I would.
So proceeding on to the next question, how to apply to universities after IB? So suppose someone has completed their IB, got their IB score, then how to convert that IB score into an university?
For UK and US universities, for those specific processes, people should probably start applying in DP in the second year of IB itself in DP2. If they want to go to university the next year after they finish IB, if they want to go that following September, they need to apply a year in advance. So for UK medicine, I applied in October of my second year in IB. And that application process that then gets furthered throughout the year. You have interviews, you have other deadlines, you have they give you an offer or they reject you, whatever the case, and then you go to uni in September. So I don't know about India, but in Pakistan, yes, people do wait until like they have the results and then they apply, because universities start in that November, December period. But for abroad unis, such as US, UK, you have to apply a year in advance. So that's when you apply timeline-wise. Regarding the how, I guess it varies for the course, it varies for which university you're trying, and it depends a lot. For the US, you need some entry exams like the SATs, ACTs. For the UK, if you're doing specific degrees, then you might need an entry exam for that. For medicine, I had to give the UCAT and the BMAT. You get to apply to 4 med schools and 1 extra course. And there's a limit on that, whereas in the US, you can apply to as many things as you want. However, you have to do an undergrad for that process. So, I mean, it is very just variable. It's a very broad spectrum of things that you have to do to get into university.
So Zain, you gave some exams after completing your IB to enter into medical school. So can you just elaborate on the exams that you gave?
I did them during IB.
During IB, okay.
Yeah, I did them. For the UK, you have to do it during IB. So
Okay.
I did the UCAT.
Okay.
It's used to be called the UK CAT. It's it's a 2-hour exam that's on your laptop, and it's very fast paced, easy in difficulty. It assesses English, math, logical reasoning, that shapes that sort of like abstract knowledge, but it's very fast paced. You have 30 seconds, 20 seconds per question, like that type of speed. And there's obviously it's an entrance exam. It's basically an IQ test of some sort. That was the first exam that majority of the universities in the UK want, but then universities like Cambridge, UCL, Imperial, like a select few top unis want something called the BMAT. And this BMAT exam is more science-based. It's slower, but you have to revise more for it. It's based on obviously basic sciences, but MCQs and all. So I gave both of them. I did pretty okay with them. It was a bit above average, not exceedingly amazing. But so when you're applying to these UK universities, you have to submit this score for these entrance exams. You have to submit your predicted IB score, and you have to submit like an application, which includes a personal statement. So that's basically the gist of it. So I had these entrance exams ready by the time in that summer. I did my UK CAT in the summer, August. I did the BMAT right before the application was submitted. And I wrote my personal statement in that like last month before I had to complete the application. Keep in mind, this was with like all of the IAs and all of the EE stuff going on. So that period is really stressful if you're applying the UK medicine. Okay, so this preparation went along with your IB, right? Some of it was in the summer. So I tried to get a little ahead and do a bit of the prep in the summer itself. Yeah. But if I'm being honest, it was harder than university deadlines and med school, and that was a very high pressure time. Firstly, I think it was high pressure because it was like going to university and thinking about that is such a big deal. It's like deciding on the rest of your life. So there was that pressure, and there was the pressure of getting into med school as an international student. So both of those combined with IB, I think it was a very for me. So what are the different methods apart from active recalling did you use to maximize your productivity? I think there's one thing that really did help me, other than active recall, was which is defining. I don't know how to explain this. I've never really talked about this, but defining and scoping what you're about to learn or about to do. So instead of just diving into, let's say, topic one and just going through all the information, going through the textbook or writing questions or whatever you're doing, before you start, take 30 minutes out to go through the syllabus. Like actually read the content, the lines in the syllabus, and have an example past paper with you from day one to see what you're actually having to study for. I thought of this as defining and scoping the subject. I'm making a video on this currently as well.
Okay,
trying
okay.
to.
Okay, Zain, suppose someone has chose IB and they have just started IB. So what are the different strategies that you can suggest to them so that they can ace their exams and maximize their productivity?
Yeah. So I would tell them to define and scope their subject. I'm sure you've heard of scope the subject from Ali Abdal, but
Yeah.
take that a step further. Look at every line of the syllabus, or maybe have it on a Word document. Don't ignore it until the exam date, and have the past paper with you before you start studying. Look at what you have to learn. Understand the whole 80-20 principle, that 80% of my results are going to come from the 20% of learning I do.
Okay.
Don't waste time studying the useless crap in your textbooks. Look at what you have to learn and only focus on those specific syllabus lines.
Okay.
And that will save you so much effort and time. And I use it in university to this day. I literally have documents of my subjects with the syllabus, the first thing that I copy on that document. So that whenever I start studying, I look at that and I go like, okay, I'm tackling this part of this thing today. I'm not just opening my book and saying, well, I would tell them two things. Define the stuff you have to actually study or even do if you're doing a project. Define it as clearly as possible. Use the syllabus, use the past paper, and then focus on active techniques like asking yourself questions, speaking to yourself out loud, talking to a friend, like that sort of stuff. Don't rely on the passive stuff. Spend the least amount of time studying as possible. It's not worth it to study. Like another advice I would give, sorry, I'm going on because I just have a lot of this. I have a lot of experience with studying now. But another advice I would give is that don't just assign full days to studying. People say that, no, on Sunday, I'll assign the whole day to studying. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I think assign 4 hours in that day or 3 hours in that day to actually doing work, and the rest fill it up with like other things, so that in those 3 hours you're fully concentrated and focused on like the stuff you have to do. And I think that really hones in your focus. Okay. Or if I went back and I could talk to myself, what I would say is that you can't really plan how much time to give to a subject like before you even got it, you know? I think I would tell them 2 or 3 things. I would first tell them to learn how to study. I would tell them to read the book, make it stick, watch some of Ali Abdal's like actual effective study videos, and learn how to do it so that you don't waste time doing it the wrong ways. Because learning how to study can really just save you half the time that people waste in the beginning. And if you're in the summer before starting, then just read about effective learning and understand how you can implement it in your life. Second, I would also give the advice, I guess this is more for later on in the IB, but I would give the advice that don't take the IAs, internal assessments, the TOK, and the extended essay for granted. Because a lot of people do, and a lot of people just do it for the sake of getting it in and submitting it. But these are opportunities for you to really expand the way you think, the things you know. This is you doing research on topics outside of your syllabus for the first time. And there are opportunities for you to grow and actually learn something and that you can use later on. For example, for one of my IAs, for maths, I went above and beyond for it. The rest of them, I completely just did the standard and got by. But for one of my IAs, I went above and beyond. And to this day, 3 years later, I'm using that in my interviews and my applications. I'm using that in my projects because I learned so much from that one thing. So I would suggest these 2 things. First, learn to study effectively through all the basics online. There's so much online now. and don't take the extra components of the IB for granted, because I think these two are doable things that you can do before you start. But if I give them any advice to do with specific planning for each subject, every person is different and every person is going to learn at different rates. So they won't really be able to follow it. It has to come from them.
So Zain, can you elaborate the 80-20 rule?
Your overall results will come from 20% of your effort.
Okay.
You have to keep that in mind as well. So if you study for an exam for 10 hours, only 2 of those hours really matter.
Okay.
If you put strong effort in those 2 hours to 4 hour time period where you're doing deep work rather than like shallow random work.
So Zain, tell me about your future aspirations.
I want to become a doctor, and hopefully that will happen in the next 5 years. And then I want to really take that to the next level with research and that sort of field of medicine. But other than that, I also want to create a brand through YouTube, through my website, through multiple other streams, and see where that takes me, because it is really fun. Having a YouTube channel is really fun. I've checked yours out, and I was very impressed by the amount of videos you have. Because you don't realize, because it's been like you've been on it for 3 months. But if someone comes on your channel for now, they will then see a backlog of 150 videos, and they'll immediately just jump on them, because obviously it's tackling specific past papers, specific questions. So I really do commend you for that. It is a lot of effort.